Hello everyone, welcome to 4Pi Academy classes. This is Ankita Rajput and we are going to discuss the second lecture in the series of nuclear and particle physics. Okay, so we have already discussed some important things, some basic things about the nucleus in our first lecture, like nuclear size and nuclear radius, and also about the nuclear charge density and nuclear mass density. And now in this lecture we are going to discuss about like nuclear binding energy curve, liquid drop model, semi-empirical mass formula, and we will also discuss about the most stable isobar, and then we will discuss some solved problems based on CSIR NET GATE exams. So let's start. Okay, so first thing we will discuss about the nuclear binding energy. Okay, as we all know that the nuclei are basically made up of protons and neutrons. Okay, but the mass of a nucleus is basically less than the sum of individual masses of the protons and neutrons. Okay, so the difference in the mass is known as mass defect. Okay, so like we have a nucleus, this is our nucleus, and these green are neutrons, and the orange color particles are protons. Okay, so this is the nucleus, and here protons and neutrons are closely packed. Okay, and this is the image when the protons and neutrons are separated. Okay, so if we separate this nucleus in the individual protons and neutrons, we will see that there is a mass difference between these two entities. Okay, and this mass difference is known as mass defect. So this mass defect will be mass of the protons, that is Z into MP. Z is the atomic number of a particular nucleus, and MP is the mass of a proton. Okay, so this will be the total mass of the proton, plus A minus Z will be the number of neutrons, and if we multiply this number by Mn, that is the mass of a neutron, it will be the total mass of the neutrons. Okay, minus mass of nucleus. Okay, that means mass of nucleus is lower than the total mass of individual protons and neutrons. So here we can calculate the mass defect. Okay, but as you all know, in special theory of relativity, the main and important thing Einstein said was basically mass is equivalent to energy. Okay, you all remember the famous mass energy equivalence relation, that is E equals to mc square. Okay, so mass is equivalent to energy means this mass defect is also equivalent to some energy. So E energy will be delta mc square, means we can convert this mass defect into some amount of energy, and this energy is known as binding energy. Okay, so if we define the binding energy, so binding energy is basically the amount of that energy which released in the formation of a nucleus. Okay, or in other words we can say it is the amount of minimum energy that is required to separate these nucleons into its constituents, protons and neutrons. Okay, so like we have this nucleus, and if we separate the individual protons and neutrons from this nucleus, so the amount of energy required is known as binding energy. Okay, so as we know, the unit of these masses, mass of proton and mass of neutron and mass of nucleus also, is represented by in terms of atomic mass unit, that is also known as AMU or U. So if we convert this mass into energy, we can use the relation, that is 1 AMU equals to 931.5 MeV. Okay, so we can directly convert the mass into million electron volt by using this formula. Okay, so in last slide we saw how to calculate the binding energy of a nucleus, right? In this way we can calculate the binding energy of different nuclei. If we calculate the binding energy of nuclei, we find that as the mass number increases, the binding energy increases. But the problem was, in this way we cannot compare the stability of these different nuclei. So to compare their stability, what we did, we just divide the binding energy by mass number. So in this way we get a number in a range so that we can compare the binding energy and basically the stability of these nuclei. Okay, so if we plot a graph between binding energy per nucleon and the mass number A, we get a graph. The graph is known as binding energy graph or binding energy curve. So this curve gives the information about the stability of the nuclei. So for light nucleus, like this is a deuterium nucleus, and this is 2He3. Okay, so for light nuclei, the binding energy per nucleon is very small. So like here you can see up to mass number 20, this binding energy curve shows that normally the binding energy per nucleon is very small, but for certain nuclei like this is alpha particle 2He4, and this is 4Be8, beryllium 8, and this peak corresponds to oxygen 16. So for particular nuclei we get certain peaks which shows that binding energy per nucleon is very high. Okay, so basically we can say that for A equals to 4n, where n equals to 1, 2, 3 and so on, we get higher binding energy per nucleon as compared to their nearest neighbors. So if you check these nuclei like alpha particle 8O16 and 4Be8, these nuclei are basically even nuclei, and here the number of protons are equal to the number of neutrons. So these nuclei are more stable as compared to their nearest neighbors. Okay, and the range of binding energy per nucleon for these nuclei is nearly 8 million electron volt. Okay, if you move further, you find that for iron 26Fe56, the binding energy per nucleon is maximum. Okay, so for Fe the binding energy per nucleon is maximum and the value is 8.7 million electron volt, and we can say it's a doubly magic number. So for this nucleus the binding energy per nucleon is maximum. Okay, if you move further, you see that for mass number between 20 to 180, the value of binding energy per nucleon is nearly constant from here to like here. The graph is we can say this line is nearly constant, and it shows a value nearly 8.5 million electron volt. So you can say in this way this property is basically corresponds to the saturation property of nuclear forces. Okay, if you move further, that means for heavy nucleus, and like we can say for uranium 236, the binding energy per nucleon decreases for A greater than 180, means for heavy particle the binding energy per nucleon is nearly 7.5 million electron volt. Okay, so the nuclei having intermediate mass number, the binding energy per nucleon is higher as compared to the heavy nuclei. Okay, so it's clear till now that the binding energy is basically the amount of energy which is required to separate a nucleus into the constituent entity. Okay, so more the binding energy per nucleon means the nucleus will be more stable. Okay, so this assumption, this theory also gives us information about the different kind of nuclear transformation which takes place in nature, right? So okay, so the light nuclei having very low binding energy per nucleon, and the heavy nuclei or basically the intermediate nuclei have more binding energy per nucleon. So if we see like here, if we have two or more light nuclei which are basically from the range 0 to 50, okay, so when the light nuclei merge together and they form a heavy nuclei. In this case, some amount of energy is released, because you can see, like if we are taking the example of 1s2, if two atoms of 1h2, or basically we are talking about in terms of nucleus. So if two nuclei of 1h2 they combine together, and after combination they form a bigger nuclei. Okay, so the binding energy of 1s2 is smaller, and when they generate a heavy nuclei as compared to 1s2, the binding energy per nucleon, obviously the binding energy per nucleon will be higher. Okay, so and also some amount of energy is released. So this will be the transformation which is known as nuclear fusion. Okay, so if another thing, if a heavy nucleus like it's uranium-238, and the heavy nuclei are basically the unstable nuclei, so when a heavy nuclei converts into two intermediate nuclei like this, so you can see in this range we have also we have already discussed about in the intermediate range the binding energy is nearly constant, and the binding energy for A greater than 180 is smaller than the binding energy per nucleon in this intermediate range. Okay, so when uranium-238 converts into two intermediate nuclei, so the nuclei will fall in this intermediate region, and obviously the binding energy per nucleon for the products will be higher as compared to this uranium. Okay, and also some amount of energy is released. So this process, this transformation, nuclear transformation, is known as nuclear fission. Okay, so one thing you can conclude, like whatever the transformation, either it will be fusion or fission. Okay, the products you are getting lie in the range of this intermediate range, and that's why the binding energy per nucleon of the products will always be higher. Okay, so from this curve, from this binding energy curve, you can get the idea about the binding energy per nucleon, and more precisely about the stability of the nuclei. Okay, so this is the example. Calculate the binding energy and also binding energy per nucleon from for copper 64. The atomic number of copper is 29, and where Cu64 equals to 63.9298 AMU. It's the mass of copper 64, and Mn equals to 1.008665 AMU, and Mh equals to 1.007825 AMU. Okay, so the mass of neutron and the mass of proton are given to you, and also the mass of nuclear mass of copper 64. So you have to calculate the binding energy per nucleon for this copper 64. Okay, so you know the formula of to calculate the binding energy. So first you need to calculate the mass defect, that is delta M. So delta M will be total mass of proton plus total mass of neutron minus the mass of the nucleus of this copper 64. Okay, so Z is 29 and MP is given to you, that is basically MH 1.007825. Okay, and A minus Z are the number of neutron, so that will be 64 minus 29 into Mn, and Mn is 1.008665. Okay, minus the mass of the nucleus of Cu64, that is 63.9298. Okay, so just calculate the value of delta M, and it will be 0.5974 AMU. Okay, so to convert the mass defect or mass into the binding energy, if the mass is given in terms of atomic mass unit, just multiply this mass by 931.5. So your binding energy will be 556.48 million electron volt. Okay, if you calculate the binding energy per nucleon, we have a nucleus having mass number 64. So just divide the binding energy, total binding energy, by the mass number 64. So it will be 8.7 million electron volt. Okay, so this is a very simple method, and by using this method you can calculate the binding energy or the binding energy per nucleon for any given nucleus. Okay, so now we will discuss the very famous liquid drop model. Okay, and this model comes into picture due to the similarities between the liquid drop and the nucleus. Okay, so according to this model, basically the nucleons inside the nucleus behaves like the molecules in a liquid drop. Okay, so we will discuss some similarities between the liquid drop and the nucleus. So like you can see, in nucleus the nucleons are closely packed. Okay, and the density and the short range forces in the nucleus are very similar to the drop of the liquid. Okay, and as we all know, inside a liquid drop the molecules move in a random motion, and the molecules randomly moving, and they collide with each other. Okay, and in similar way nucleus also possesses the same properties, because nucleons also move randomly inside the nucleus and they collide with each other. Okay, and one more important thing is that, like if this is the liquid drop, if we give sufficient amount of energy to this nucleus, like this can absorb another liquid drop. Okay, and or in some other way it absorbs some energy, so it distorted. Okay, and it get a shape of like dumbbell. Okay, and finally it splits into two nearly equal fragments. Okay, so it will be converted into two almost equal smaller size liquid drops. Okay, in similar way, if we give some amount of energy to our nucleus, like if it absorbs some neutron. Okay, initially it was spherical in shape, and then it will be converted into some spherical shape, and finally it will acquire a shape of dumbbell. Okay, and finally it will split into two nearly equal fragments, and finally it will also release some energy. So these are the properties which are also similar. Okay, so we can say, if we are talking about the stable condition. Okay, so in stable state our nucleus is basically spherical in shape, and also the liquid drop is also spherical in shape if it's in stable state. Okay, and the spherical shape is basically due to the surface tension, which is uniformly distributed on the surface. Okay, and we all know, in first lecture we discussed about the density of the nucleus. Okay, so the density of nucleus is independent of the volume and the mass number of the nucleus. So in similar way the density of the liquid drop is also independent of its volume. Okay, and in liquid drop the molecule evaporates if we raise the temperature. Okay, and in similar way, if some amount of energy is given to nucleus, like by bombarding a nuclear projectile. Okay, in this way a compound nucleus is formed. Okay, and that compound nucleus will emit some amount of nuclear radiation. Okay, so this property is also common in both liquid drop and nucleus. Okay, and as we know about the nuclear forces are basically the short range forces. Okay, and in similar way in liquid drop there are some intermolecular forces, and they are also very short range. Okay, so if the liquid drop oscillates, okay, due to any reason it is oscillating, then it breaks up into two smaller drops of equal size. Okay, and the process is almost similar to the process of the nucleus breakup into smaller nuclei. Okay, like nuclear fusion. Okay, and now we can also discuss some other property which is also common between these two, like if we have two small drops of liquid and we brought them in contact of each other, then finally they combine together and form a bigger size drop. Okay, and this process is similar to the process of nuclear fusion, in which two lighter nucleus combine together and form a single heavy nuclei. So these are the few properties which are common in both liquid drop and nucleus. Okay, so now we will discuss the semi-empirical mass formula. Okay, we have already studied the liquid drop model, and using the assumptions of liquid drop model, the semi-empirical mass formula has been derived. So this formula basically gives the binding energy of a nucleus which is in the ground state. Okay, so this formula, semi-empirical mass formula, is also known as VW formula, and it's derived using the concepts and assumptions of liquid drop model empirically. Okay, and this gives the binding energy of a nucleus for ground state, and this binding energy we are getting in terms of atomic mass number A and atomic number Z. Okay, so we will discuss later what are these different terms here in detail. Okay, so the first term is known as volume energy term, and you can say somehow it's related to the volume. Okay, because we are taking a V. This AV is a constant, and so this term AVA is known as volume energy term. The second term minus AS, A to the power 2 by 3, is surface energy term. Okay, and this is surface energy constant. Third term is minus AC Z, Z minus 1 upon A to the power 1 by 3, and this whole term is known as Coulomb energy term. The fourth term minus AA, A minus 2Z square upon A, is known as asymmetry term. And the last term, that is plus minus AP, A to the power minus 3 by 4, is pairing energy term. Okay, so these constants, the values of these constants can be given in terms of million electron volt, and AV is 14.1 million electron volt, AS is 13 million electron volt, AC is 0.595 million electron volt, AA is 19.0 million electron volt, and AP is 33.5 million electron volt. Okay, so these are the values of these constants, and the formula for Coulomb energy constant AC is 3 upon 5 E square upon 4 pi epsilon naught R naught. Okay, so this formula, semi-empirical mass formula, is very important. Just remember this formula, and you can note the formula in your some diary or something, so that for last time preparation you can easily revise this formula, because it's going to be very important. Okay, now let's discuss in detail about the terms in binding energy formula. Okay, so we have studied the binding energy curve. Okay, in last slides we discussed about the binding energy per nucleon for different nucleus. Okay, so there we see in the graph we took binding energy per nucleon on y-axis and mass number A on x-axis. So somehow we can say that from that curve that binding energy is proportional to the atomic mass number, right? As there is a little deviation because the curve was not constant, so so it's not directly proportional, but we can say somehow that the binding energy is proportional to atomic mass number A. So if we assume that thing, so we can say that the binding energy is proportional to atomic mass number A, and the constant of proportionality will be AV. Okay, but if we assume this thing, we generally overestimated the binding energy. Okay, so right, this term is due to the strong nuclear forces, and it suggests that number of nucleons which interacts is proportional to A. Okay, so this binding energy, we are saying that this binding energy is proportional to A. Okay, means if we are talking about a particular nucleon, like this is our nucleon, some nucleon, so we are saying that this nucleon is interacting with all the nucleons inside this nucleus. Okay, that's why we are taking A here. Okay, but actually this is not the case. Okay, so now there comes different energy terms in picture. Okay, so as we said that we have overestimated this thing, because in actual case each nucleon is not interacting with all the nucleons inside the nucleus. So let's see the second term, surface energy term. So this term comes into picture due to the nucleons which are present at the surface. Okay, so if initially we were saying that each nucleon is interacting, let us say for this nucleon which is on the surface, there is a attractive force which will act on the surface from inside. Okay, because there are no nucleons outside this nucleon, because there is nothing. Okay, this is the surface of this nucleus, so only nucleons inside the nucleus interacts with this nucleon, and there are no nucleons this side, so the attractive force will not be present from outside. Okay, so we can say the binding energy, we assumed that EV is basically EVA is reduced, okay, due to the nucleons present at the surface, and this reduction will be minus AS A to the power 2 by 3. Okay, because we are talking about surface energy, and surface energy is 4 pi r square if we are talking about a nucleus having radius r. Okay, and you know r equals to r naught A to the power 1 by 3. So your r square will be A to the power 2 by 3, and from there this A to the power 2 by 3 comes into picture. Okay, so the reduction in binding energy due to the surface energy will be AS A to the power 2 by 3. Okay, let's move further. Third term is Coulomb energy term, and this term is due to the long range repulsive forces present between the protons. Okay, and this force acts between all the pairs of protons inside the nucleus. Okay, so we have neutrons and protons distributed inside this nucleus. Okay, and because protons having the positive charge, so there will be Coulomb repulsion force between these protons. Okay, and this force, this Coulomb energy force, is basically a long range force, so it will act between all the pairs of protons present in the nucleus. And if we calculate the pairs of these protons, so the pairs will be Z minus 1 upon A. Okay, so the Coulomb energy term will be minus AC ZZ minus 1 upon A to the power 1 by 3. That means due to the repulsion or the repulsive energy present inside the nucleus, the binding energy also reduced by this amount. Okay, so next reduction is due to asymmetry energy term, and this is due to the excess of neutrons present inside the nucleus. So what is mean? As we all know, for light nuclei, mostly in nucleus, the number of protons is equal to the number of neutrons. Okay, normally n equals to z for light nuclei, and that's why they are more stable. Okay, the light nuclei having equal number of proton and neutrons are more stable, and as we move further, means atomic number is increasing, so n is no longer equal to z. Okay, and due to this excess, the departure from the relationship, due to this departure from this relationship, it leads to reduction in binding energy. Okay, so this term will be minus A minus 2Z square upon A. So last term, which is known as pairing energy term, it is due to the fact that if we have even nuclei, so these type of nuclei are more stable. Okay, and if we talk about odd nuclei, so they are the nuclei which are unstable. Okay, and for odd and even nuclei, they are lie in the intermediate range. Okay, so if we consider this factor also, so the binding energy also reduced by this amount. Okay, by the factor plus minus AP A to the power minus 3 by 4. Okay, so the term EP, or we also call it as delta. So delta for odd even or even odd nuclei is 0. Okay, and for even nuclei, the value of delta is AP A to the power minus 3 by 4, and for odd nuclei, delta will be minus AP A to the power minus 3 by 4. So these are the actual assumptions, and if we consider these assumptions, the binding energy reduced from the amount AVA. Okay, so now we are going to discuss about the most stable isobar of a nucleus. Okay, So we will use the semi-empirical mass formula to calculate the most stable isobar for particular nucleus. So okay, so in mathematics, you know that how to find out the stability condition. Okay, so if you want to calculate the most stable isobar, you have to just differentiate this EB with respect to Z, that is atomic number. So if you put this differentiation dEV over dZ equals to 0, you can find the value of Z, okay, that will be corresponds to the most stable isobar of this nucleus. So just differentiate this term with respect to Z and equate it to 0. So this will be minus 2AC Z upon A to the power 1 by 3 plus 4AA A minus 2Z upon A, and that will be 0 because we have Z in these two terms only. Okay, so we will differentiate these two terms and other terms will behave as a constant and will be 0. Okay, so just find the value of Z and it will be, on solving, this Z equals to A by 2 upon AC upon 4AA A to the power 2 by 3 plus 1. Okay, so this is the formula of most stable isobar. Okay, if you know the value of A, obviously ACAA, just put these values here and you can calculate the answer. So also if your AC, as we have described earlier, your AC is 0.595 million electron volt or your AA is 19.0 million electron volt. So by putting these constant, you can use this formula also. Your Z will be A upon 0.015 A to the power 2 by 3 plus 2. Okay, so either you can use this formula, and I will suggest you to use this formula always, because sometimes in some questions you can get different values of these constant from these given values. So if you use this formula, there will be some deviation from the answer, so it's better to use this formula always. Okay, so now this is the question, I guess, in CSIR NET exam in 2014 or 15, I guess. So the problem is, for a fixed value of A, the atomic number Z for most stable nucleus would be. Okay, it's very simple because we just solved how to calculate the value of most stable isobar, and you remember the formula is this: A by 2 AC upon 4 AA A to the power 2 by 3 plus 1. So if you remember the formula, you can just tick on this answer. So B is your correct answer. Okay, so now the next problem is, for A equals to 77, what is the most stable nucleus? Okay, so आपको atomic mass given है ना, आपको Z calculate करना है, and that will be the most stable isobar. So either you can use this formula, because there is no value of these two constants AC and AA, so you can use this formula. Otherwise, if you have the values of AC and AA in the question, you can use this formula also. To use this formula, put the value of A, that is 77, and just solve. So your Z will be 34. So your option B is correct option. And this problem is from NET exam June 2013, and the problem is, the binding energy of a light nucleus in million electron volt is given by the approximate formula. So this is your formula of binding energy, and N equals to A minus Z is the neutron number, and the value of Z of the most stable isobar for a given A is. So ये भी same फॉर्मूले पे बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है, आपको मोस्ट स्टेबल आइसोबार फाइंड आउट करना है. तो हम डायरेक्ट फॉर्मूला यूज करते हैं जहां पे हमें ए की वैल्यू गिवन होती है, बट हियर वी हैव ए अप्रोक्सीमेट फॉर्मूला ऑफ बी. सो वी विल चूज द मेथड फॉर स्टेबिलिटी कंडीशन. हमें क्या करना है, हमें सिर्फ बाइंडिंग एनर्जी को डिफरेंशिएट करना है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू जेड. ओके, put it equal to 0. So your del V over del Z equals to 0, and आप डिफरेंशिएट करेंगे तो ये दो टर्म्स में ही आपका Z है, so डिफरेंशिएट कीजिएगा, it will be minus 3/4. Z स्क्वायर का डिफरेंशिएशन हो गया 2Z, and A to the power minus 1/3 as it is, plus 30. इस टर्म्स का आप डिफरेंशिएशन करेंगे तो it will be 2N minus Z ओके, एंड z का आपको फिर से डिफरेंशिएशन करना होगा, दैट विल बी -1, इसलिए हमने यहाँ पे -2 लिया अपॉन a एज इट इज इक्वल्स टू 0। तो आप सॉल्व कर लीजिए, यहाँ से आपका z आ जाएगा a/2 अपॉन 1 माइनस a टू द पावर 2/3 अपॉन 160। ओके, सो आपका ऑप्शन 1 करेक्ट हो जाएगा, बिकॉज ओके, सो आप इसको ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं z इक्वल्स टू a/2, और आप इस डिनोमिनेटर को ऊपर लेके जाएंगे तो इट विल बी लाइक 1 माइनस a टू द पावर 2/3 1 अपॉन 160 टू द पावर -1। सो ये आपका ऑप्शन हो गया। सो आप कुछ भी फॉर्मूला यूज कर सकते हैं, बट ट्रस्ट मी ऑल्टरनेट ईयर आपको ऐसे क्वेश्चन जरूर मिलेंगे जो बेस्ड होंगे इसी फॉर्मूलेस पे, कि आपको कैलकुलेट करना होगा व्हाट वुड बी द मोस्ट स्टेबल आइसोबार फॉर पर्टिकुलर ए। ओके, और अदरवाइज आपको इस टाइप से कोई अप्रोक्सीमेट फॉर्मूला गिवन होगा एंड आपको उस फॉर्मूले को यूज करके कैलकुलेट करना है। ओके, सो दीज आर द फॉर्मूलाज विच आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। सो थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग द वीडियो, एंड अगर आपको कोई डाउट है, यू वांट टू आस्क एनीथिंग, यू कैन रिप्लाई इन कमेंट सेक्शन। ओके, सो थैंक यू।